just conveying, I was going to say we are now international. We are global Sunday school because we have a guest from Tennessee here. So that makes us international. But I was going to say that, but actually I was conveying how I got a song stuck in my head. And I won't sing it because I don't believe in singing songs during teaching or preaching. Why does he say that? Anyways, we have been going over, and we are coming to an end very quickly of our series, Know What You Believe, Know Why You Believe It, and we will be starting soon. So I guess we should leave the books here next week for Dave, Dan, whatever's going by that day, to hand out. Someone suggested this, and it's one of C.S. Lewis. We did a series on C.S. Lewis, and I really like him because he's a little unorthodox.
What is it?
Four Loves.
It's the Four Loves, especially tuned to husbands, potential husbands, so they can completely, absolutely, and without a doubt understand their wives.
Wow. Yeah, really. Little book.
I didn't know there was a manual.
It's thick. I don't think that's possible. In fact, I think Scripture does tell the man, not the woman, tell the man to study his wife. Yes, there's a reason. Anyways, so coming to the end, and thus we doing this chapter on Christian experience. Is it valid? And I first looked at it and I thought, why is he picking this? Because it's dubious to me. It's kind of a little undefined, the whole thing of Christian experience. And we're going to get into that. So I thought, though, what do we mean by Christian experience? What you experience as a Christian. That's basically it. So in no more than 3 sentences, describe your personal Christian experience to me. No more than 3 sentences. Anyone?
Is it like, well, the first thing that popped in my mind is like kind of like the journey of Frodo, like the Lord of the Rings. Like it seems like it's a very long journey. I know the end is good, but everything in between is kind of.
That's great. I think that's my daughter. Oh, great. Anybody else? Any profound things? How would you describe your Christian experience in 3 sentences or less? Perfect? Wonderful? Up, down.
Mountain Valley.
Mountain Valley. I like that. Yes. Valley. Mostly in the valley. Right. Okay. So Little starts out this chapter on Christian experience by conveying how a skeptic, who he called an articulate skeptic, compared one's Christian experience to a lamp. In other words, Little said, the idea was being conveyed that, quote, completely personal and subjective and has no objective, eternal, or universal validity, end quote. In other words, the critic was saying, the things you Christians point to, oh, I know, I just know. Like, that's all in your head, they're basically saying. It's trying to think of a way to convey for non-Western cultures may not be familiar with that phrase. Maybe we'll try and explain it. Immanuel Kant and David Hume come to mind in this situation, not completely. And I'm not going to go back over them, I harp on them enough. But does our personal experience, not just Christian, but our whole personal experience, does that translate exactly to what really is? No. Why would you say no?
Perspective.
Perspective.
can all see the same thing. Even in this room, we're looking at you a little bit differently. And so I could say something a little bit differently, but yeah, perspective.
Why is my wife laughing? Yeah. Yes, very well put. What you perceive, and Hume and Kant got on this, perceptions. Perceptions is you're taking stuff in through your senses, and then your mind works it into a conception of what's going on. Have you ever talked to somebody who in short order you were talking away and then they look at you and go, were you talking to me? You know, they were not accurately perceiving reality going on. Or the classic example from the great theological movie Reese Witherspoon's Legally Blonde 1, where she asked her male counterpart, what color shoes do I have on? And then he goes, brown. You know, so yes, we know, ladies, you tend to perceive detail a lot better than us men, with the exception of
Deer hunting.
deer hunting, right? What's the thing?
You can see a deer 200 yards away, but you can't find the mustard behind the milk in the refrigerator.
That's right. Usually the catch up. Honey, where is this? Why is it in the door? It's supposed to be in the door. I have all these rules, you know. Right, so perception's going on. Sometimes it's comical, right, in marriage. Sometimes it's comical, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it leads to big fights. You know, the misperceptions, well, you should just know what I'm thinking. That's me. And, you know, the other one's, I didn't mean that at all. Right? So perceptions, reality. So when we put into our minds does not exactly translate one for reality. We grant that. We grant that. I mean, I have to take an eye color test every time I go for my flight physical to make sure I can perceive colors correctly. Now, is that little number and all them jumbly dots they have in there, is that really red? Or does humans perceive it as red and it's not red? I don't know that answer. But the idea is there's some sort of standard perception of what reality is to be. Hume and Kant, though, were saying that we have no justification at all to say that we perceive things accurately. We can perceive phenomena, but we can't perceive phenomena. I had to look those words up again when I reread them. But, so in the same way, though, skeptics contend that what you Christians perceive as God acting in your life is really just something you're putting in your head. You're not really perceiving reality. There's really no God. You're just making it up for various reasons.
But other people like Kant, basing these observations off of perceptions alone and not studying the scripture to see what the scripture says about
So I went to school for all these years and you just figured it out without going to school. Yes, well, there's a whole thing, Hume and Kant, because they actually rely on some of these things to try and disprove some of these things. Remember when I said the brilliant Stephen Hawking made that blunderous error. Anyways, skeptics can say, yeah, I said that. Okay, so what the skeptic is saying is because you Christians are not perceiving this God thing correctly, you cannot, one, use it, your personal, oh, I just know that God exists and all this. You can't use that to tell someone else that that's proof that he exists. And secondly, they say, you cannot use it for yourself because you are not perceiving things accurately. So that was kind of what Little is going to, and that is a good question. But let's just kind of take a little side step. If the skeptic is knowledgeable, let me make this point. If the skeptic is knowledgeable, and then he tries to say that pertains to all knowledge and assertions about God, like from an academic standpoint, intellectual standpoint, he went too far. That's a totally different, what we call a category. The academic or intellectual arguments for the existence of God are apart from your perceptions. So don't try with, I love when I said before on the internet, how to destroy Christianity in 30 seconds. Really? Wow. If your argument is that foolproof, don't you think it would have came up by now? But internet pundits, whatever. What we're talking about involves, as I've been saying, by Christians, and in all fairness, other religious people can do in their faith is when we say, I just know it's true. Don't tell me otherwise, I just know it's true. I've had that said to me when we were discussing things on faith. I just know it's true, don't try and talk to me about it.
But is it because they put so much faith into it, it becomes true to them?
Yeah, I think this whole thing, and don't think that stay with me through this whole thing, because I'm not saying Christian personal experience is bunk. That's not what I'm saying today. But what I'm saying, it needs to be qualified. So, boy, you get old, you forget things. Well, I think what you're saying is, why do if they put so much faith in it? Yes, some do, and not unjustifiably. I've had people say, I don't know about all this stuff you do, Kevin. I just have a simple faith. And I understand that, and I appreciate that. Not everyone is a nerdy book guy like me. I get that. I think you're wrong, but I get that. But at the same
Faith
time,
of a child. That's what you're supposed to have, not.
right? But are children simplistic or dumb?
Simplistic.
They're simplistic.
Okay, simple is one thing. Simplistic, what we mean by reductionistic, where we just boil everything down too much. Children are actually very smart.
Like out of the mouth of babes.
Out of the mouth of babes. Yeah, don't children say what you're not supposed to say sometimes? But it's like,
No, I don't mean in the bad sense. I mean like if you're are in nature with the child and some of the things that they can put together that it's not just a question I know Lucis shocks me sometimes with his questions when I think, oh, I'm about to teach him something,
put together. That was well put. A young child, you can actually almost see, metaphorically, them putting different things together in a cohesion. When that happens, that's exciting. That's really exciting. And, all fairness, my grandson and my future grandson are exceptionally brilliant. Exceptionally brilliant. I'm not prejudiced. I'm just saying, really
You get
smart.
that from the grandmothers?
Okay, what we're talking about is when some religious person of any faith says, I just know it's true, and that is the bulk of the sufficiency of proof for that religion. We're addressing that issue. The skeptic here is asserting not a qualified personal experience, but all Christian experience is bunk. That's what the skeptic, the atheist, is saying. You can't bring in your Christian experience because you're completely self-imagined, or worse, you're a result of some pastor or some teacher, or especially parental brainwashing. I love how that phrase is always thrown out in accusation of us. You're brainwashed. Oh, and you're completely objective.
But isn't that their perception of a Christian?
Oh, is that there? We're not going there. Sidetrack. I got 10 pages I have to get through. Okay, you religious people are weak-minded, so you just think there's a God, and of course you have the correct version of it. You know, so,
But isn't when there's a crisis like 9/11, there's a lot of people that turn to God and they
Okay,
turn to
well,
God.
we're weak humans, and in a moment of crisis, we slip.
But they're saying that we believe in something that don't exist, but they believe in it when they're in a crisis.
But not necessarily. It's in this culture now, atheism holds sway, you know, or practical atheism.
Until they get a major crisis, and then they're going to turn again.
Well, let's agree to disagree on that.
But you can also point to very intelligent people that were once atheists that actually investigated and became strong Christians. Hence, the guy we were just talking
Lewis
about.
Carroll is
a
a
while
perfect
ago.
example.
C.S. Lewis.
Good one.
They
Good
can't,
one.
they can't say that he was brainwashed into it, because he didn't say.
Well, they could, right? He just slipped. He went wacko.
Well,
Okay,
wait a minute.
that brings a good thing. If the atheist claims, as a side tangent, if he claims that you are brainwashed or weak-minded, and that's the only reason you're a Christian, what could be a response, a polite response, but still not a shilly-shallying? What could you say back? What?
That atheism works the same way.
What's that?
That atheism works the same way. They don't believe because that's, you know. how
Right! Who
Yeah.
is to say
They're weak-minded.
you're,
so-
I've heard, you only a Christian because you were raised in a Christian family. No, actually, I really kind of wasn't. My father was very against religion. But you could say, well, maybe you're only atheist because you were raised atheist, or you heard an atheistic professor. Maybe that's why you're an atheist. And usually the response is, no. Why? Because atheism is considered a default thing. You have to prove you're God to me. I don't have to prove there's no God. That's called a negation. No, it doesn't work that way. But that's the perception of our culture, is you should automatically be an atheist unless there's some real absolute person. One woman said to me, if Jesus would appear to me, I might believe.
But I used to think that way. I mean, I understand where you're coming from because I used to think as you do. But life has changed for me because of that. That's an opening.
It's changed. We're coming back to that. Hold on to that. We're coming back to that. Anyways, that's called turning the tables. When I have discussions, I usually take what is said and I'll turn it and flip it and put it back to see if it meets the test. It works once in a while. Usually, though, I get yelled at. I get yelled at a lot. And I'm not bragging, because I don't like yelling and arguing. But usually, no, it's not! I had a guy do that in the cockpit, and I'm thinking, what's the passengers thinking? So the question before us this morning is whether some Christian experience of God is valid, objectively valid. When we mean something is objective, what we mean, we tend to say it's absolute, but objectivity is whether it's true in all cases, in all places, apart from what you think or what you say. That's called objective. So, is some Christian experiences objectively valid? That's the question I think Little was going for. Because Little grants that not all Christian experience is valid. Some Christian experience, some religious experience, in fact, some non-religious experience comes from emotional manipulation, academic manipulation. One way is only teaching one view, teaching it absolutely, never mentioning any other views. That is academic manipulation. So, the manipulation of emotions or the misinterpretation of events, that never happens in marriage, right? Never, Of course, There's a difference, though, between that and the parental standby. I call parental things. We should have a book, right? Mothers have a book. What was the first chapter in a mother's book of motherly wisdom? Because I say so, right? That's objectively true. You can't question it ever.
My mother's favorite.
Because I said so. What would be the guy's chapter? And he'd have one chapter. Women have 500, mothers have 500 chapters. We'd have one. Well, maybe two. What's one of our chapters?
You're right, I'm wrong.
Father. Father.
Go ask your mother.
Go ask your mother. Go ask her. Where's your mother? Right? Or the other one is, and I got this from a guy, Al Brace. This is, you know me. What would I think of that? If I had sons and he just smashed the car up, yeah, going 90 down the side street. Well, you didn't say I couldn't. You know me. What would I think of that? I think that's the only two things us dads would have. You know, but I do love the go ask your mother. Go ask your mother. So, but all this is a far cry from asserting that every and all Christian experience is false. Just because there's some manipulation from the pulpit or well-intentioned but an errorful academic manipulation doesn't mean all Christian experience is false. That's a broad brush or called reductionistic attempt to disqualify something. Little points to Jesus' parable, the sower in this case. All right, you great, I usually say navigator. If you don't know what a navigator is, back last century, they were hugely powerful or prominent, very big into scripture memorization. Now, let me try and think of another group of people who might be intense. Oh, randomly comes to my mind. Word of Life. You ever hear of them people? You know?
Wait, what's wrong with Word of Life?
I'm teasing you. I'm just picking on you. No. Because I joked. I dropped my daughter off at Word of Life, and the part I liked, she doesn't like when I say this, is they had two camps. Guy side, girl side. Down the middle, they had a barbed wire fence with searchlights and guard towers.
Right.
No, actually, but they had a rule. Let's see if I get this correctly. A girl cannot take a guy's arm, no touching, unless there's ice or something. Maybe then she can take his arm. So they real strict rules, which, parents like, yeah!
They've loosened up a lot.
Oh!
We can watch movies now.
Anyways, let's test your knowledge. Jesus' parable of the sower. Which just keep going, don't point it out. Wow. Which situation of the farmer throwing out seed on the soil, different types, what applies, which one would applies here as far as emotional manipulation or the failure to go deeper? I'm kind of vague, but see if you can make the jump that Little did.
The rocky ground.
The rocky, why do you say the rocky ground?
Well, that's what he said.
Okay.
Because they get shallow roots, and then when something comes along, they just get pumped right out.
Right.
So their emotions, they attach to it real quick, but then they don't have any substance, so they don't stick there.
Right. Okay, so very joyful and all, but it doesn't go deeper. It's stony ground. That's what he goes, and I'm like, yeah, I guess. Right.
That's what Jesus said.
What?
Yeah, that's the
That's
parable.
what Jesus said,
Right.
Yeah.
So I will add that my own Christianity, if my own Christianity was based primarily on emotion, feelings, I'd be a dead duck. I'd be in a lot of trouble. Because at 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes I wake up and my dear wife is sleeping so well. And I struggle with issues, questions, God and good and evil and different things and my own personal struggles. Not like years ago, but every once in a while that dragon pops his head up. And if I was basing my Christianity solely on how I feel, my experience, in the same way, what other thing can you think of? If you base that situation primarily on how you feel, it's in deep trouble. What other situation in life as human? Marriage, right? Do you ever wake up and not like that person? I'm sure she does. Right? I mean, we all start marriage with this ideally Camelot view of how it's going to be, and then 2 days later you wake up and he hasn't shaved, he has bad breath, he's burping and scratching, and you're like, what?
Prince Charming turned into Prince Alarming?
Yeah, I talk to my flight attendant sometimes. I say, you're just talking, or other pilot. How long have you been married? I was with the young FO. She was really young, and she's like, "Oh, Leslie here," and she's smiling. I said, "Is he still Prince Charming?" "Oh yeah." And I said, "My wife says her Prince Charming's turned into Prince Alarming." She laughed at me. Anyways. I guess that, do you ever feel unmarried when you're married? Do you ever feel unfriendly to your good friends? Emotion and experience is not the primary way we decide reality. Thus we get the little point in this chapter. And so, and I thought, okay, I see where he's going. And maybe this is why he included the chapter. On page 203, he says, quote, "We cannot explain all Christian experience on a psychological basis." Like we've been talking about, emotion and all that. Brainwashing. "It does not fit the facts," he says. And that was like ding, 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 ding for me. The facts. And at this point, he points to Psalm 34:8. I would put the Word of Life people in the room on the spot, make them quote this verse from memory.
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet. Is that the word?
That was a good try, no.
I used to see the Lord is good.
You looked in the book. Here I was going to brag about you. Yes, taste and see that the Lord is good. Now come on. What type of God allows you to investigate him? Come on. If we were making this all up because we're brainwashed or emotional weaklings, would we dare do that? Is that what you do when you make something up? You allow people to investigate facts? No! If we were making up a God, what type of God would we have?
Does whatever we want.
Does whatever we want, or the other end?
Gives us whatever we want.
No,
Let's just do whatever we want.
no. How dare you, puny human, question me? Thunderbolt! Right? This was my father. When my father figured out that if he doesn't go to church, God was not going to hit him with a thunderbolt, he turned from religion. He had nothing to do with it. Until later, he went begrudgingly with my stepmother to a church. The pastor was very intellectual. There was no hoo-hooing in that church. If you got really joyful and you stuck one arm up, that was okay. Two? No. But one? Yeah, okay. But he was so intellectual that my father would go. And I think that's what led to his eventually conversion. But he thought that God was going to hit him with a thunderbolt. And that's the only reason he really went to church. That's the type of God we would make up. Not the type of God who says, Tess, what did Jesus say to Thomas? Remember this one? I keep harping on this. What did Jesus say to Thomas? How dare you question me? No, he said what?
Come feel the bolts in my hands.
Look, touch, see, and then believe.
And blessed are those who don't have to see.
Right? See him. Right, see him. But the idea of facts, of evidence, our experience is not floating out here what I call, I use this in dissipation, I stole it from somebody else, where the feet are planted firmly in midair. That's not our Christian experience. It shouldn't be. It doesn't mean all Christian experience is like that. Some Christian experience can be rooted in fact. The one that he then goes through is well, I'm not supposed to go there yet. Follow the notes. Follow the notes. I said that already. Sorry. It always looks so well on paper. When I start having thoughts, oh, what does that have to do with anything? Skip. What would be some facts or evidence that we could appeal to about Christianity to show that Christianity itself is valid? If we were having this discussion and they said, oh, you're just brainwashed. You're just a Christian because your parents were. No, I'm a Christian because it's based in truth and reality. No, it's not. Okay, well, what's some things we could point to as Christians that would counter that? That we're not just emotional blobs.
The Bible.
Oh, that's just your holy book. Everyone, there's lots of holy books.
Well, have you read it?
I love that one.
I challenge you, read the whole Bible, and then we'll have this discussion.
I
Again,
love that one.
let's go
I
back
love
to it.
that one. I sent that to Bill Maher, you know.
That it has changed people's lives.
Well, you know, if a person's going to sit and argue with you, they should have put at least enough time and effort into that particular subject. So if you feel this way and you're so adamant about it, read the Bible and then you prove me wrong.
Excellent. That's actually apologetical technique is, hey, I'm open for truth too. You know, right. But that's not what's happening in our culture.
Well, we'll read it together then.
That's a good one. Yeah. All right, what's some other things we could point to to show that Christianity is valid?
It's historical evidence.
Historical, that's called what? Everything in philosophy ends in ology.
Archaeology.
Archaeology! Oh, you're killing it today, Jackie.
Yeah, you are.
That back row's doing a great job. You get a gold star.
You're,
If you're new to the class, just remember I take the stars away too. Anyways, archaeology! Right.
where's their archaeology?
Well, there was this is great video, but that's this thing, young people, where they put it on this plastic thing, you stick it, or in the old days it was on this tape, you stick it into a machine, you just don't stream. I'm not mocking, I'm just saying how things have changed, right? Because I still have records in my basement and VHS tapes.
Records are coming back.
Yeah.
Anyways, this excellent video on the Exodus, and this guy researched and he's showing how it's actually, if you move the time period, everything lines up, because these other professional archaeologists, Egypt, there's no evidence of the Exodus. See, we're digging, there's no evidence. Well, this guy was saying, you're looking in the wrong place, because there is humus. The pilot stone, there's some other stelo, there's some evidence.
And there's more and more every day.
more and more every day. Well, that would make sense, right?
They
Any
found
other-
chariots and stuff in the Red Sea, from what I've understood.
Oh, that was often. Well, if it was the Red Sea, not the Reed Sea, why isn't there anything at the bottom? Well, that's a good thing if they find something. So there's archaeology, there's a changed life. Now, a changed life is a little sticky because other religions can produce changed lives, right? True. But still, a changed life must be explained. A radically changed life must be explained. Must be an explanation.
There is proof too in some of that. They have shown that people who are in recovery stay in recovery if they find a higher power, far greater than those who don't. If they don't pursue that, or that isn't a change in their life, usually it's quite often they'll repeat themselves. But when they come to a higher power, then
Right.
they stay with it.
And part of
Enough
that.
for the government to ask for us to do trainings in that.
Christian recovery programs have a way higher success
That's
rate
correct.
than just
Much higher.
Okay.
non-Christian.
Right, because it's tough. And I don't mean tough like, you gotta get up and mow the yard tough on Saturday morning. I mean, addiction is not something that you just, just get out of it. I remember being told in the depths of my struggles, just snap out of it. You just don't appreciate what you have. Well, that was very helpful, thank you. A change, okay, we said that, change life. What we have here is Little saying on page 207, objective historical fact, Christian experience is not induced by belief in unrealities. Little spends a good amount of pages on purpose and direction, quest for peace, and especially guilt and loneliness. Okay, he was saying these are objective historical facts. I was like, okay. His point is not that only Christians have an answer in these areas, but that Christian answers in these areas are plausible. They're not cuckoo. They have a plausibility. However, this is to me what rang the bell. The one area of objective historical fact that he seems to pass by real quick is the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the grave.
Paraplegic. Yeah, he will need a chair. That's good. All right.
He kind of just mentioned it, but the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the point. Morning. Hi. So, and we've gone over the historical soundness of the resurrection in other series in this other sessions in this series, and a whole other series we've done it. We're not going to do this now, but let me say, if you think the resurrection is just some religious thing you guys made up, you can't offer that as objective historical truth, then I would say Gary Habermas' 10 Minimal Facts. Look that up. That speaks to this idea of what's verifiable, what's objective, and in order to counter this idea that, you guys just made this stuff up. I mean, who in their right mind would do what Paul did? What did Paul say about the resurrection? Who remembers? Did he say the resurrection's a nice little thing on the side? No. He said, if the resurrection is not true, what?
We are people to be sorely
Why?
because then it would make his whole faith not.
Right. In vain, he says. You idiot, Paul. You're basing the whole ball of wax on the resurrection? Are you out of your mind? We're making this stuff up. Jesus didn't come back from the dead. He just came back in our hearts. No, he says this, unless this is a true, objective, historical fact, it's all for bunk. Who in their right mind makes that claim unless they're cuckoo or it's true? Or it's true. Check it out. Don't blame me. Check it out. See? Okay, so when we say, I just know Christianity is true as an indication of our personal inner experience, it does not just float out there as they say. It's not just something self-imagined. It can be, not always, it can be based in historical fact, objective fact, our personal experience. But I think someone mentioned this here, and before I open it up for any comments, how easy is it, though, to not place our feelings and experiences in the primary position of determining reality? How easy is that to do?
When you're in the moment of something, like a car accident, you know, your perception when you're in the car during the accident, your emotions are up there, and then to you, that's reality. But someone looking from the outside in may see a different picture of what actually happened in the accident.
Okay.
But you really believe this is what happened because you're in that
Right.
moment, your emotions are running high. I mean,
Okay.
I was in a car accident, and the 18-wheeler coming to hit me, and I became a grill ornament. And I was like, you know, my reality at that moment was, how do I get my car off the 18-wheeler?
I'm cringing because she isn't telling the whole story.
No.
My wife went up the bank, was going to cross 4 lanes of highway traffic and ripped this trucker's heart out. You know,
My
like.
kids and my husband were in the car.
Anyways, but how easy is it to not let emotion and experience those things combine to have my
It's not easy.
not
It's like that's like the first thing that comes to
right.
you when you're in the situation. Oh, just in everything.
And
And many times it's because the emotion comes out because through your experience, you know, not just your personal experience, but reading the Word, you begin to love God, and you begin to see what He's done in your life, and yeah, it changes your emotions. You're in love with God, and it would be hard to separate that out and just speak factually about Him.
well, you're actually saying the good part of that question. You know, I was trying to show how it's hard to separate emotion, you know, but you're actually going to the other side, making a very good point, is when these things happen in our Christian experience, they do point to the validity of Christianity, especially when you change. If you're someone like me who has a horrible temper, and in my younger days, I thought I could fix everything with my sheer willpower. My poor kids, you know. But something changes you. I called it God's holy 2x4 upside my head. You know, why are you talking to your wife like that? That's what I imagine God saying to me. Why do you talk to her like that? But, so what other thoughts do you have on this whole thing of Christian experience?
Well, I think sometimes it's a process, but when you start to, you know, we hold on to stuff and we do it our way, but I think when you make that conscious decision to say, I'm gonna let go of this, I'm gonna see what God does with it, stop doing it, I think things start to happen and you start to be like, whoa, that really worked. If I just let go and stop doing it my way, things happen, and I think you start to, the first couple of times you're like, coincidence, you know.
Right.
But then after a while, you keep doing that, and it's like, boy, he's really steering me in a certain direction, he's doing things with me, and I think that's where you're going with that, right? You're
But that's
experiencing-
called validation, right?
Yeah,
You actually do it God's way, and it produces a better you than if you do it your way.
but it's not always, he doesn't always make it easy either.
Oh!
It's, it's, you know, it hurts a little bit. but
Only a
it's
little?
his way of working it out.
Only
you
a
know?
little?
But then you realize eventually that was God. I let go of that. That was God teaching me something, and he actually made it better in the long run, even though the journey was a little bit tougher than if I would have done it my way. My journey would have been easier, but at the end I would have been all messed up and, you know, so.
What is that called? Do you know what biblically that's called?
Sanctification.
Yeah. Wisdom,
Yeah.
right? Learning from your mistakes. Wisdom, right?
Be careful
Do-
what you pray for. I've been, praying for tolerance and patience, and I've been
Oh
given a
no,
lot
I
of
never pray for
practices.
that. I never pray for that. I am not gonna pray for that. Any other thoughts on Christian experience?
I just wanted to read something here. It's in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. And then a little bit later it says, but God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong, and he chose the lowly things of this world, and the despised things, and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are. And sometimes it just feels, and I know, I understand what you're saying, but if somebody is not searching, I think you can say, you could have the perfect examples of where God has changed your life, but I think if they're just throwing up arguments to you, you could, say things perfectly and it would not go through.
Right. I don't try to win the argument with people. All I hope for is to put a question in their head. My one relative, not my relative, my one relative, hardened, sure atheist. And I just prayed that, he said once, when I walk down from the barn, I look in the stars and I wonder where they come from. He says, please, God, just multiply those questions. Like C.S. Lewis, the questions he couldn't answer led him to be the most reluctant convert in all of Christianity. So, Dave is going to finish up this series, starting next week, on the church. He is going to detail how all of you, except for Dave and I, have been messing up as the church. And if you want to do it right, you'll know. No, Dave's not going to do that. But he is going to go over the church, and this is an utmostly important thing, because I think in our culture now, the church is dropping the ball. We are dropping the ball. And if we want to make an impact, I believe it's time for a reformation of the Western church. Father, I thank you. I praise you. No, Lord, I know that just pops out of my head. Jeff's right. Lord, sometimes I have a hard time praising you when the way is tough and painful and hard. The difference is I'm old enough now to know that your way is better. I just don't like it sometimes. Lord, I'm not praying that you'd make my life easier. But Lord, I pray that I'd be worthy of your name. That's what I want to shoot for in the end. In Jesus' name.